Hey guys, it's me again, Orkslayer What Ifs. Where we last left off, let's see, checking. Where we last left off, well, Belle and the fragment, or the woman, pretty much just left the tower. As I didn't know she had a name at the time, I went back and played through it a bit. She does in fact have a name. Her name is Nadalia. So, with this, I'll change up the fact why I said that she doesn't have a name. She gave her name instead, saying that she was Nadalia. As she said, there's legends around this tower, as you might have heard. The woman who forsook her own flesh to become ash. That's who she is. She doesn't care, really. At this point, she's lived so long and really has just grown detached from all this that she wants power, but there really isn't a reason to it. So with this, she goes with Belle, and some of the warriors that were around the tower follow Belle since she gave him command over the troops, you could say. As Belle's like, alright then. He doesn't question it. He just goes with it. So as they they travel for miles upon miles to get to weeks of travel, pretty much, to get all the way to Aurario. As they first arrive at the city. As Belle has figured out that his warriors, similar to Nadalia, can be turned to ash, and he pretty much shrinks them down and puts them in flask, as Nadalia taught him this, so that way they can be more, I believe the word is conspicuous, which I'm pretty sure maybe I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that it is though, but essentially they're just trying to be less noticeable, even though that's kind of freaking hard when you got a guy that has a giant sword on his back and very, very dark armor. The Dark Knight Rises. But anyways, as they move to Aurario and show up at the front gates, they're let in. As Belle's like, it's been a while since I've been in the city. It's weird being back in one. As she's like, oh, feeling homesick or something? Nadalia. He's like, no. My home is no longer my home, apparently. I will reclaim it, though, when I gain enough power. She's like, well, I hope you do. It's a pain. It's pain, apparently. My sister, Nashrandra. She's very greedy, you know. He's like, I could tell. She's like, yep. Well, I'm gonna sleep for a bit. Good night. He's like, do you even sleep? She's like, maybe. We don't know unless I try. As she falls asleep. Belle's just like, if I didn't need her, I'd leave her behind. As Belle goes on a journey, pretty much wandering through the town, as he asks around to be led to, as he heard stories and such, and has learned information about Aurario, he asks where the guild building is. And so like, oh, it's right this way, it's down straight to the left, you gotta go. It pretty much gives him directions. As he enters the town, enters the guild building, he shows up as he goes to the front desk, you could say, as he just waits there, as it's like, how may we help you? He's like, I'm new in town. I was hoping you could give me some information. She's like, oh, a newcomer. It has been so long since we had one of you come here. Well, I guess we're the place for it. We're the guild, essentially. We manage finances to adventurers, familias, give hunter, not hunters, give adventurers their valis when they come back from, hunting monsters, that sort of deal. He's like, yeah. How do I go about being allowed to enter the tower? She's like, well, I guess you need to join a familia. He's like, alright. Would I be allowed to set up do I just come in every day with my money? Or she's like, well, we typically have we have bank guild members typically assigned to some adventurers. Maybe but you'll have to get to a familia before anything. He's like, okay, I understand. Thank you for the information, Miss, well, what is your name? Ah, dang it. Just give me a second, Samson's trying to crush me. She says her name's Miss Ana, and to just ask for her name when he returns. He says, thank you for your help. As he leaves, she's like, something's not right. She had a feeling that she was wondering, what's all the deal with all the flask around those things? It looks like they're filled with sand or something. That giant sword. Is he able to carry that around without even being an adventurer? Huh. He will be interesting, I guess. As she goes back to her duties, as he's like, alright. As he looks at the time, he's like, it is quite late. We don't have any money, do we? She's like, nope. Nadalia. You're awake. She's like, yes. And it seems you're about to go to bed. He's like, yeah. Let's find a place on the outskirts. Don't let this, being in towns like this makes me uncomfortable. She's like, oh, you kinda not a crowd person? He's like, yeah. Plus I stick out like a sore thumb. Anyways, as they head to a dilapidated church, as she's like, a church. It's been a while since I've been in one of these places. He's like, do you ever shut up? She's like, no. So, what, you're just gonna lie down and go to bed here? He's like, she's like, well, don't let me keep you waiting. Rame, whatever your name is, Bell, Rame, I've heard things about Black Knight called Rame at one point. Not long. She's like, Rame is no more. I'm just Bell. I've always been Bell. Still don't know why I used that name. She's like, I kinda like it. He's like, of course you would. She's like, nah, it was nice, simple, rolled off the tongue. And Bell just sounds weird. What kind of parents name their kid after the thing that rings so much, that you use to ring to get people's attention? He's like, I don't know. As after this point, if there was any sort of formality with him, he just drops it, because he's just been stuck with her for weeks to months. He's like, God, I hate you so much. She's like, and I don't like you very much either, because you won't take that power and become a king like I offered. He's like, I don't desire to become a king. She's like, yeah, you told me before. He's like, oh, God. If you ever want to be queen, you should try to act more proper. She's like, oh, fuck you. I can be proper when I want to be, but I don't. So eat it. As he's like, man, you are very rude. She's like, shut up. He's like, As then someone opens the door, Belle's like, He doesn't move, as he just hears tiny little footsteps like tip, tap, tip, tap, tip, tap. As he's like, alright. As the sword on the ground, he picks it up. His giant sword, as he jumps up and is like in a attacking stance. As Hestia's like, shut up, why? As she's like, wait, who are you? As Belle's like, who are you? She's like, I'm Hestia. What are you doing in my home? He's like, your home? You live in a dilapidated church? She's like, what are you doing staying in a dilapidated church? He's like, don't try to swing this around on me. As he's just like, oh, damn it. Oh, I'm too tired for this. As the yawn just rings out from his helmet, he's like, I'm going to bed. As he drops the sword on next to the ground, he's like, do what you want. I'll pay rent or something. As he just starts snoring, Hestia's like, hello? Hello? He's like, She's like, well, that was interesting. I've never had that happen. So, what now? As she looks at his giant sword, she's like, this thing is very crude. Even I could tell that. It's like a giant hunk of iron that's been beaten to a rough shape of a sword. But then she looks on the other ground, as then she sees a nice little blade that he uses in his other hand. She's like, this thing. I wasn't around Hephaestus long enough to know this is good quality. It has been handled gently and nicely done. Finely crafted, well balanced. I'm hanging around her too much. I know too much about swords. Maybe she could take a look at this guy. His gear. She's like, I'll think about it in the morning. As she goes to bed too. And this Belle's like, I'm tired. As he gets up and he stretches, he's like, time to hit the day. As Dahlia says, oh, hey, Belle, you awake now? He's like, yes. Good. Let's get going. He's like, sure. As Belle and Dahlia pretty much start heading out to go familia hunting, he starts thinking about what kind of familia he should join. She's like, that's a no-brainer, isn't it? He's like, yeah, I know I should join one that goes deep into the dungeons. It's like, maybe that one person. As he goes around and actually, as Hestia comes out of her like little side room, he asks, do you know of any familias that travel deep into the dungeons? She's like, yeah, why? He's like, I need to know their names, please. She's like, well, a lot of some familiars won't take you unless you prove yourself worthy, I guess. A lot of them turn away new people. You might be an exception, though. As she's like, tell you what, how about I help you? It's like, really? He's like, what is your name, actually? She's like, Hestia. I'm the goddess Hestia. He's like, wait a minute. Hestia, the goddess of home? She's like, yeah. Ooh, I don't think there's any other goddess named Hestia. As Belle's like, you had a familia once, if I remember. At least there was one person. He's like, oh yeah, I remember. He retired long ago. Haven't seen him since. Didn't even write any letters. He's like, As he lets a smile cross his face, he's like, well, I guess Dad was right. I guess you are still around. He's like, wait. She's like, wait, what? what was your dad's name? And it's, well, she's like, Dad, wait, don't tell me. As they put two and two together, as Belle comes to the realization, Lady Hestia, I am the son of one of your old familia members. She's like, oh, I remember. He moved away with that one girl, deciding that he had had enough adventuring and wanted an easier life. He's like, yep. So, what has brought you here? Father said you guys had at least a nice household, you could say. She's like, well, after your father left, well, there was no other familia members, really. Father said you had a decent amount of money. She says, oh yeah, that doesn't help when you owed a couple of debts. As he's like, how? My father said he made hundreds of thousands of valis. Maybe even millions. I forget, it's been so long since he told me the stories. She's like, yeah. How is your father doing? He's like, last I saw him, he was doing quite well. Still very youthful, you could say. She says, well, that's good to hear. He was one of my only familia members. He was nice and kind, I could say. So are you anything like him? He says, I'm different in many ways, but I'm also the same. She's like, and your mother? She is doing just fine. Actually, they had another kid not long ago. Really now? Huh. No, you should really ought to tell your father to pay a visit every now and then. She's like, or where we live, where they live, and where Aurario is. The journey is long and grueling in some cases, especially for mine. She's like, really? Would you have to go through an entire horde of monsters? He's like, you could say that. And she's like, I was joking. He's like, I know, and I'm not. As Belle lets like a smile somewhat calm across his face, he's like, he can talk one-on-one just fine. As Hestia's thinking, she's like, well, what'd you say keeping up the full family tradition? As she like puts on a smile, he's like, well, Father did say you were a nice goddess. Didn't try and exert too much control over her familia. Very well. Plus, it's just easier to do this now than go hunting, for one. She's like, well, you'll be on your own, most likely. That's unless you get a follower to help you along. He's like, my own skills and strength should be sufficient enough. She's like, oh, I have no doubt it. Your father was one of the better ones. If he didn't retire so soon, I bet he could have eventually rivaled some of the greatest members of Aurario. Maybe even one like guy called Otar, which is one of the strongest adventurers in Aurario. Really? She's like, yep. He, though, doesn't really get out much since he spends a lot of his time with his goddess, Freya. It's like, Freya. I think Father told me about once, Freya, the goddess of beauty? She's like, well, one of the many. He's like, yes, Father said that there were many gods of the same kind. She's like, yep. Unfortunately, sometimes it can get kinda difficult keeping up with all the different types. He's like, I understand. Very well, so how do we do this thing? She's like, well, if you'll lay down, we need to make a pact, essentially. As they go through the necessary process, he gets his contract drawn up on his back. As then she goes to start like saying, oh, you got some pretty useful skills. He's like, tell me them. She's like, alright, let's see. The first one is called Giant Slayer. Does extra damage to, and actually receives less damage from monsters that we could consider giants. He's like, that sounds useful. She says, it's pretty rare, actually. You got a few more. Let's see. Ashen one. The fuck? Has control over warriors of ash. She's like, that is a neat one. I have never heard that. Is that what you have in those vials around your waist? She's like, yes. I can conjure, as he puts that in quotations, conjure them up, if I will it. She's like, unending resolve. She's like, what is this? Is able to get exceedingly stronger and progresses much faster with a set goal in mind. As that's pretty much an ability he has already in the anime once he meets Eyes. He gets inspired to want to grow even faster, and Bell has that exact same emotion, except he wants to kill Nishandra and free his homeland. So you can see where the interests line up somewhat. They're both after a certain lady. Bell is waiting as he listens more and more. She eventually gets to the next one. Bound Entity. And she's like, I have never heard of that. And he's like, read it all. She's like, an entity of unknown nature is bound to your soul. It can die, you can do much with it, and it could do much to you. And she says, there's even a warning on this? What the hell? Warning, I guess, she says that it warns against the entity trying to suck out your soul to bolster its own. Or you can try to subdue it to gain more control and power. She says there's a little bit right here, but it's muddled up by something that I can't read. Son, I can't see it. She's like, sorry. He's like, no, that is good. Let's see. Giant Slayer, Unending Resolve, Ashen One, Bound Entity. She's like, yep, that's everything. He's like, huh. I was expecting there to be less of them. She's like, well, most do, but hey, you're lucky. You got several good abilities. He's like, I guess you are right. Thank you, Lady Hestia. I shall go off to the guild and get myself set up with an account, I guess. She's like, very well. Thank you for your time, Belle. He's like, thank you. As he gets his armor put back on and walks over and meets with Miss Aina again. Anyways, guys, I think that's where I'm going to end this one off at. I hope you guys enjoy this. Hope you guys continue to enjoy this. Hope you guys have a nice day, nice night, nice life.